On a routine flight from Chicago to Los Angeles, Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, stepped into the first-class cabin wearing a simple jacket, jeans, and a red "Make America Great Again" MAGA hat. His entrance immediately created an air of tension as some passengers noticed the bold political statement he was making with his hat. For Emily Carter, the flight attendant, it was an unsettling moment. The first-class cabin exuded an exclusive, quiet atmosphere, with its plush leather seats and low lighting, designed to make passengers feel at ease. The sight of the MAGA hat, however, felt disruptive to Emily, who saw it as a symbol of division rather than just an accessory. The young executive in seat 3A, clearly displeased, glanced at Elon before turning to Emily and expressing his discomfort with the hat. He insisted that this was first class, a place for peace and comfort, not for political statements. His irritation was clear, and his request was loud enough for other passengers to hear. This put Emily in a difficult position. She had always prided herself on maintaining professionalism and ensuring the comfort of all passengers, but the situation felt beyond her control. Elon, meanwhile, sat in his seat, seemingly unaware of the rising tension around him. As whispers spread throughout the cabin, some passengers began to side with the executive, while others, like an elderly couple in the back, whispered their disapproval, making the environment increasingly uncomfortable. Emily knew she had to act, but how could she balance her duty with the growing pressure from her passengers? Emily Carter, the flight attendant, felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her as she walked briskly towards Elon Musk's seat. The tension in the cabin was palpable, and she could feel the eyes of every passenger on her as she approached the tech billionaire. The young executive in 3A had already made his displeasure clear, his voice dripping with frustration as he demanded that something be done about the MAGA hat. Emily knew that her job was to maintain the harmony of the flight, but the pressure from the passengers, especially from such an influential customer, was making the situation increasingly difficult to navigate. As she reached Elon's seat, she took a deep breath, reminding herself that professionalism had to come first, no matter how uncomfortable the situation was. Elon, who had been quietly adjusting his headphones, looked up at Emily as she approached, his expression calm and composed. "Is there a problem?" he asked politely, unaware of the storm brewing around him. Emily, trying to maintain her composure, explained that some passengers had expressed discomfort about the hat and that she was simply trying to preserve the peaceful atmosphere of the flight. She asked if he would consider removing it. Elon raised an eyebrow, his sharp gaze meeting hers as he responded with a chuckle, "My hat is causing discomfort." His voice was light, but there was an underlying challenge in his tone. "There's no specific rule against it, sir," Emily replied, her voice steady, but her heart racing. "But in first class, we aim to ensure maximum comfort for all our passengers." Elon's eyes remained locked on hers, and for a moment, Emily felt as though he was testing her resolve. "I'm not being disruptive," he said calmly. "I'm not speaking loudly, and I'm not bothering anyone. So what exactly is the issue here, Miss Carter?" The words hung in the air, and Emily felt a momentary pang of doubt. She had no real answer to his question. After all, he wasn't breaking any rules. It wasn't like he was being loud or causing a scene. But the discomfort of the other passengers, particularly the influential businessman in 3A, was undeniable. As Elon's calm gaze held hers, Emily knew she had to make a decision. But what could she do? The pressure to act quickly weighed on her, and before she could respond, the young executive in 3A interjected, this time his tone even sharper. "The issue, Mr. Musk," the businessman said, "is that hat. It's inappropriate for a setting like this. We pay premium prices for this service, and we expect a certain level of decorum." Some of the other passengers began to nod in agreement, while others, still silent, seemed to be observing the situation carefully. The atmosphere in the cabin grew tense. Emily felt trapped. She didn't want to escalate things further, but she also couldn't ignore the growing pressure from the passengers. In that moment, she realized how delicate her role was. As a flight attendant, she had to balance the needs and comfort of all passengers while upholding the image of the airline. The situation was becoming personal. She could feel it in the sharp glares from the businessman, the uncomfortable murmurs from other passengers, and even the subtle tension in her own chest. Elon, however, remained relaxed, as though he were unconcerned with the escalating drama around him. But for Emily, it was becoming harder to ignore. She needed to act, but what would be the right move? The situation was quickly spiraling out of control. As the tension continued to rise in the first-class cabin, Emily stood frozen, caught between her professional duty and the mounting pressure from the passengers. Elon Musk remained calm, leaning back in his seat, flipping through a magazine as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening. The young executive in seat 3A was now standing, his voice growing louder as he demanded that the airline take immediate action. "This is not a place for political statements," he said, his tone harsh. "I paid for peace and comfort, not to be confronted with such divisive symbols." The frustration in his voice was clear, and other passengers started to whisper amongst themselves, some nodding in agreement, others observing the growing scene in silence. Emily felt her heart race as she looked around, unsure how to proceed. Elon, still relaxed, turned to her with a polite but challenging expression. "I don't recall my peace being disrupted by a hat," he said. "I'm not disturbing anyone or breaking any rules. Perhaps the issue lies with your feelings, not with me." His words caused a few passengers to chuckle quietly, but the young businessman in 3A wasn't amused. He stepped closer to Elon, raising his voice even more. The situation had escalated beyond what Emily had anticipated, and the weight of the decision now rested squarely on her shoulders. She quickly stepped in between the two men, trying to diffuse the tension. "Sir, please return to your seat," she said firmly. "We don't want any further escalation during this flight." But the businessman wasn't backing down. "What are you going to do about it?" he challenged. The atmosphere was so tense that Emily could feel her own nerves starting to fray. She knew that whatever she did next would have consequences. The tension in the cabin reached its peak as the situation spiraled out of control. Emily Carter stood between Elon Musk and the young businessman from seat 3A, trying desperately to defuse the growing conflict. Her pulse raced as she looked at the businessman, whose face was now red with frustration, and then at Elon, who sat calmly, his magazine still open in front of him. The businessman, clearly displeased with how the situation was unfolding, took another step forward and raised his voice, once again addressing Elon Musk with an accusing tone. "This is not the place for political statements. First class is meant to be a peaceful, professional space, and that hat is anything but professional." Emily, feeling the eyes of every passenger on her, felt trapped. She had always prided herself on maintaining control over her flights, ensuring that all passengers felt respected and comfortable. But in that moment, she felt completely out of her depth. She knew that the young executive in 3A was a frequent flyer with significant corporate influence, and his dissatisfaction could harm the airline's relationship with his company. At the same time, Elon Musk, a high-profile tech entrepreneur, was a major figure in the business world, and she didn't want to alienate him either. She had to make a decision, and fast. Elon, still sitting in his seat, responded to the businessman's escalating frustration with a calm demeanor that only seemed to fuel the anger in 3A. "I don't recall disrupting anyone's peace with my hat," Elon said, his voice steady, even amused. "I'm sitting quietly. I'm not bothering anyone. The issue isn't with me, it's with how others feel about it." Emily could feel her cheeks burn as the exchange unfolded in front of her. She had no real authority to ask him to remove his hat unless he was violating a specific airline rule, but the pressure to act was overwhelming. As the businessmen continued to argue, the other passengers in the cabin began to murmur among themselves, clearly divided on the matter. Some seemed to agree with the executive, while others, like an elderly couple in the back of the cabin, shook their heads and muttered under their breath. One passenger, a calm and collected artist wearing sunglasses, spoke up in an effort to quell the rising tension. "Everyone's overreacting," she said, her voice firm but measured. "It's just a hat. Do we really need to make this a big deal?" The artist's comment caused some passengers to pause and reflect, but the businessman wasn't having it. "The problem is not just the hat," he retorted. "It's what it represents. We don't need to bring divisive political symbols into this space." Emily's mind was racing. She knew that, as a flight attendant, it was her job to maintain order and ensure that passengers felt comfortable. But with two opposing sides escalating the situation, she didn't know how to handle it without further intensifying the conflict. Should she side with the businessman who was threatening to reconsider the airline's contracts, or should she back off and let Elon be, knowing the potential consequences of angering such a powerful figure? The situation grew even more uncomfortable when the businessman, now visibly agitated, stood directly in front of Elon, blocking his view of the magazine he was holding. "You're causing a disruption," the businessman snapped, his voice rising in volume. "Do you really think you can just wear that hat in a place like this without facing consequences?" As the tension escalated, Emily made a snap decision. She knew that, as a flight attendant, she had a duty to maintain the peace, and if she didn't intervene now, the situation could quickly spiral out of control. She stepped forward, positioning herself between the two men. "Sir, please return to your seat," she said firmly, her voice steady but loud enough to command attention. "We don't want any further escalation during this flight." The businessman gave her a cold, hard glare but reluctantly returned to his seat, muttering under his breath. The cabin remained silent for a moment, as though everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the next move. Emily glanced over at Elon, who was still seated calmly, as though nothing had happened. His expression was unreadable, but there was an unmistakable sense of indifference in the way he casually flipped through the pages of his magazine. "Mr. Musk," Emily began, trying to regain her professional composure. "I understand that you have every right to wear whatever accessories you choose, but it's clearly causing discomfort among some of the passengers. I kindly ask you to remove the hat so we can continue this flight without further issues." Elon looked up from his magazine, his sharp gaze meeting hers. There was no anger in his eyes, only a quiet, almost mocking amusement. "You want me to remove my hat because it makes other people uncomfortable?" he asked, his voice polite but carrying an edge. "I wasn't aware I was violating any rules. If others are uncomfortable, that's something they'll need to handle." His calm demeanor only seemed to escalate the situation, and Emily felt the pressure mounting as the tension in the cabin reached its peak. The businessman in 3A, his voice trembling with anger, once again demanded action from Emily. "If this airline doesn't do something about this now," he threatened, "I'll have to reconsider my entire company's contract with you." Emily, unable to back down, stepped forward again. Her voice, louder and more commanding this time, cut through the cabin. "Sir, please return to your seat immediately. We will handle this situation appropriately. There will be no further escalation." The businessman shot her an angry look but eventually sank back into his seat, grumbling under his breath. Elon, meanwhile, remained unflustered, continuing to flip through his magazine as if nothing had occurred. Emily, now standing in the center of a divided first-class cabin, could feel the weight of her decision bearing down on her. Little did she know, this moment would set off a chain of events that would have far-reaching consequences. As the situation continued to unfold, the tension in the first-class cabin was palpable. Emily Carter, the flight attendant, had hoped that the decision she had made to ask Elon Musk to move to the economy class or remove his "Make America Great Again" hat would bring an end to the discomfort. But as the minutes ticked by, the atmosphere only grew heavier. The businessman in seat 3A, who had been the most vocal about the hat, had already issued a veiled threat regarding the airline's contracts. His voice had been firm, demanding that something be done, or he would reconsider his company's partnership with the airline. The weight of that threat hung in the air like a storm cloud, and Emily could feel the responsibility of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. The response from Elon Musk, however, was surprising. He had agreed to leave first class, but his demeanor remained eerily calm. As he gathered his belongings, he turned to Emily, leaning in just enough for her to hear. "I'll remember this," he had said quietly. Those words reverberated in Emily's mind as she watched him walk down the aisle, his steps calm and deliberate. She had no way of knowing just how much those words would affect the course of her career, or the airline's future. Once Elon had moved to the economy class, the first-class cabin exhaled a collective sigh of relief, but Emily was left with a growing sense of unease. She had acted, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped into a much bigger situation than she had realized. In the galley, Laura, one of her colleagues, approached her, her face full of concern. "Everyone's buzzing about it," Laura said, handing Emily her phone. A video of the entire incident had already been uploaded to social media, and within minutes, it had gone viral. The footage showed Emily asking Elon to leave, along with his calm but pointed remark, "I'll remember this." The title of the video blared in bold letters, "Elon Musk kicked out of first class for wearing a MAGA hat." Emily's heart sank as she watched the comments and reactions flood in. Social media was ablaze with divided opinions. Some users supported Elon, arguing that he had every right to wear the hat, while others sided with Emily, stating that first class should be a place for peace and comfort, free from political statements. But the most shocking part of the video wasn't just the incident itself, it was the backlash that followed. The video's view count skyrocketed within minutes, and media outlets were already picking up the story. Journalists were calling the airline, and the situation had turned into a full-blown public relations crisis. In the midst of the chaos, the airline's management had already been alerted. Over a dozen calls had come into the airline's ground operations, and the pressure was mounting. The captain of the plane was informed about the growing media storm, and Emily could feel the heat of it as she tried to process what had just happened. She knew that the incident was not only embarrassing for her but could have serious consequences for the airline. What had started as a seemingly small issue, a hat, had snowballed into a full-blown PR disaster. Back in the economy cabin, Elon Musk was unbothered by the turmoil he had just caused. He sat among the other passengers, reading his magazine as if the viral video and the fallout meant nothing to him. But Emily couldn't ignore the weight of the situation. She felt the eyes of everyone on her, from the other flight attendants to the passengers in first class, who had likely heard about the incident by now. She knew that once they landed in Los Angeles, she would have to face the music. As the plane touched down at Los Angeles International Airport, Emily's anxiety grew. The passengers began to disembark, but Emily knew that the real challenge lay ahead. As she made her way down the aisle, she could hear snippets of conversations from passengers behind her. "I heard she kicked Elon Musk out of first class," one person whispered. "This airline is crazy," another remarked. Emily clenched her jaw, trying to block out the murmurs. She had done what she thought was right in the moment, but now it seemed as though the consequences were much larger than she had anticipated. When she exited the plane, Emily was met by Laura, who had bad news. "There's a senior airline representative waiting for us at the gate. They want to talk to you," Laura said. Emily's stomach dropped. She already knew what this was about. As they walked through the terminal, Emily couldn't help but overhear the whispers from other passengers and colleagues. The video had gone viral, and now, her actions were being scrutinized by everyone. At the gate, she was greeted by Mark Donovan, the airline COO, who wasted no time getting to the point. "We need to talk, Emily," he said, his tone stern and devoid of any pleasantries. Emily followed Mark down a long hallway, her anxiety growing with each step. When they reached the conference room, Mark placed an iPad on the table and played the viral video of the incident. Emily could hear her own voice in the background, asking Elon to leave first class, followed by his calm response and his ominous words, "I'll remember this." Mark looked at Emily with an intensity that made her feel small. "Do you understand what's happening here?" he asked, his voice measured but firm. "This isn't just an in-flight incident. This is a PR disaster. We've already received millions of views on social media, and public opinion is divided. Some people are criticizing you, while others are defending you, but the real problem is that this could cost us a major investor." Emily's stomach churned as Mark continued, explaining the situation's impact on the airline's reputation and the possibility that Elon Musk might pull his investments. "Do you understand what that means for the company?" Mark asked. Emily nodded, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She had never imagined that a simple decision, made in the heat of the moment, could have such profound consequences. Mark wasn't done. "You've put the airline in a crisis. Now, you need to explain everything to Elon Musk. He's requested a meeting with you." Emily's heart dropped. She knew this meeting would determine her future, and the thought of facing Elon Musk, after everything that had happened, filled her with dread. As she walked into the conference room for her meeting with Elon, Emily realized that the stakes were higher than she could have imagined. What had started as a simple request to remove a hat had now become a pivotal moment in her career. She had no choice but to face the situation head-on and hope she could make things right. The aftermath of the incident weighed heavily on Emily as she sat in the conference room, preparing to meet with Elon Musk. The video of the altercation had gone viral, and the public's reaction was mixed. Some supported Elon, arguing that the flight attendant had overstepped by asking him to remove his "Make America Great Again" hat, while others sided with Emily, claiming that political symbols had no place in a space meant for relaxation and professionalism, especially in a first-class cabin. The video had garnered millions of views within hours, and the airline's public relations team was working overtime to manage the fallout. The impact on the airline's reputation was undeniable. Passengers and viewers alike were calling for boycotts and demanding explanations, while some defended Emily, praising her for standing up to a public figure. But what mattered most, Emily knew, was how the airline would respond to the situation, especially in light of the fact that Elon Musk was a major shareholder of the company. As the plane landed at Los Angeles International Airport, Emily felt a sense of dread that had been building up ever since the incident. She was aware that the meeting with the senior airline representatives was inevitable, but what she didn't expect was just how much the situation would escalate once they landed. A senior airline representative, Mark Donovan, was waiting for her at the gate. His expression was as stern as ever, and Emily could tell he wasn't there for a casual conversation. She tried to brace herself for what was coming but knew deep down that the gravity of the situation was far beyond her control. "Emily, we need to talk now," Mark said, motioning for her to follow him. As they walked down the terminal, Emily overheard snippets of conversations from other passengers. She could feel the weight of the whispers and the judgment in the air. "I can't believe they kicked Elon Musk off the flight," one person murmured. "This airline is a joke," another person added. Emily felt herself grow smaller with each step, knowing that her decision had set off a chain of events she couldn't take back. Mark led Emily to a small conference room, where the air felt cold and sterile, as if every inch of the space was meant to amplify the tension in the room. Mark placed an iPad on the table and tapped a few buttons, playing the viral video for Emily to see. There she was, on screen, calmly asking Elon Musk to leave first class due to the MAGA hat, followed by his calm yet pointed response, "I'll remember this." The video had captured the entire exchange, and Emily could feel the sting of her own voice as it echoed in the room. "This video has gone viral, Emily," Mark said, his voice firm. "Do you realize the kind of PR disaster this has become? There are millions of views and thousands of comments. The public opinion is split. Some are defending you, some are defending Musk, but that's not the point. The problem is that you've put this airline in the middle of a storm. Do you understand what this means?" Emily's heart sank as she listened to Mark's words. She had known this wouldn't be easy, but she hadn't anticipated the full scale of the situation. Elon Musk wasn't just any passenger. He was one of the largest shareholders of the airline, and now, thanks to her actions, he was considering pulling his investments. Mark's gaze was unwavering as he watched Emily, his disappointment palpable. This is serious, Emily. We're not just talking about a misunderstanding here. You've put us in a position where we might lose millions of dollars in investments. Do you understand what that means for the airline? Emily nodded, feeling the weight of Mark's words press down on her. She knew she had acted in the heat of the moment, trying to maintain harmony on the flight, but now she could see just how much her decision had reverberated across the company. I didn't mean for this to get out of control, she whispered, her voice trembling. I was just trying to do my job. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair as he continued. It's not just about you trying to do your job. This is about professionalism, judgment, and the way we handle situations with high-profile passengers. Musk's a major figure. You didn't just ask a passenger to move, Emily. You challenged him in a way that caused a crisis for the airline. Emily felt her stomach twist. She knew she had made a mistake, but the weight of what she had done was far heavier than she could have ever imagined. I understand, Mark, she said softly, her voice barely audible. I take full responsibility for what happened. I never thought it would blow up like this. Mark nodded, his expression softening slightly. I appreciate that, but now you have to deal with the consequences. The higher-ups are aware of the situation, and Elon Musk has requested a meeting with you. He wants to speak with you directly. This is your chance to explain yourself and hopefully fix the damage that's been done. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She had known that meeting Elon Musk was inevitable, but she hadn't prepared for how personal it would feel. He wasn't just a disgruntled passenger, he was a powerful figure, and now she had to face him, knowing that her actions had put her career and the airline's future in jeopardy. As Mark left the room, he turned back to Emily one last time. Remember, Emily, this isn't just about you. This is about the company's reputation. You need to handle this carefully. We're all watching. The words echoed in her mind as Emily sat alone in the room. She knew that the meeting with Elon Musk would determine the future of her career. She couldn't undo the past, but she could try to make things right. Taking a deep breath, she braced herself for what was to come. The storm was far from over, but she had no choice but to face it head-on. Emily Carter had never felt more out of her element. The situation that had erupted on her flight was rapidly turning into a full-scale PR nightmare, and she was at the center of it all. After the plane landed, the backlash from the viral video was immediate and intense. The footage, showing her confronting Elon Musk over his "Make America Great Again" hat, had exploded on social media within minutes of being posted. It was everywhere: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even news outlets were covering the incident. Public opinion was sharply divided. Some applauded her for trying to maintain the peace and comfort of first class, while others criticized her for overstepping her bounds, especially in dealing with a high-profile figure like Musk. Her inbox was flooded with messages from colleagues and friends, some offering support, others expressing their disapproval. As she was escorted to the airline's conference room by Mark Donovan, the airline's COO, Emily's thoughts raced. She had been summoned because Elon Musk himself had requested a meeting with her. The reality of the situation began to sink in. Musk wasn't just a disgruntled passenger, he was one of the largest shareholders of the airline, and his decision to make this public was far from a simple matter. His influence was immeasurable, and now Emily was going to face him directly, with her career and the company's future on the line. When Emily entered the small, cold conference room, she found herself staring at an iPad on the table. Mark Donovan tapped a few buttons, and suddenly the video of the incident began playing. Her voice, calm yet trembling, filled the room as she asked Elon to move to economy or remove his hat. Elon's response, quiet but defiant, echoed in her mind, "I'll remember this." The video was a clear reminder of how quickly things had spiraled out of control. Emily didn't need to see the views count climbing in real time to know how big the fallout would be. Mark's tone was unforgiving as he explained the severity of the situation. "This isn't just an in-flight incident," he said, his voice tight with frustration. "This is a PR disaster for the airline. The public opinion is split, and we're paying the price for it. People are attacking you, the airline, and Musk. It's a mess." Emily's hands were trembling as she listened. She had never imagined that asking a passenger to remove a hat could escalate to this level of crisis. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered, feeling the weight of the words. "I just wanted to do my job, to make sure everyone was comfortable." But she knew that wasn't the full story. The pressure from the other passengers had clouded her judgment, and in the moment, she had allowed her emotions to take control. The worst part was that now, the airline's reputation and Elon Musk's involvement were on the line. He wasn't just a regular passenger, he was a powerful business figure with a huge stake in the airline. Elon had millions of shares in the company, and now, thanks to her actions, he was considering pulling his investment. Mark continued, his words sharp. "Elon's not just a customer. He's a shareholder. And now, we've got him questioning his entire relationship with this company. Do you understand the stakes?" Emily nodded, her stomach sinking. This wasn't just about one disgruntled passenger, it was about an entire business relationship. She knew that, given Musk's influence, the fallout could have catastrophic effects for the airline's stock price, its reputation, and its bottom line. The situation only got worse when Mark told Emily that she would have to meet with Elon Musk personally. "He wants to speak with you directly," Mark said, his voice carrying an edge of finality. "And you need to be prepared. This is your chance to fix things, or it could be the end of your career here." Emily felt a wave of nausea wash over her. A meeting with Elon Musk? She had no idea what to expect. The thought of facing such a powerful figure, knowing that her actions had already caused significant damage, was almost too much to bear. But there was no escaping it. The meeting was set, and Emily knew that it would be a pivotal moment in her life. She had a choice to make: apologize and attempt to salvage the situation, or risk her career in the airline industry and possibly even face termination. As she waited in the conference room, Emily's thoughts swirled. She had always prided herself on being a professional, but now her professionalism was being questioned in ways she never anticipated. She knew she had to face the consequences of her actions. It was the only way forward. The meeting with Elon Musk was not just about clearing her name, it was about proving she could learn from her mistakes and rebuild the trust that had been shattered in a matter of minutes. Finally, the door opened, and Elon Musk walked into the room. Dressed in a sharp suit, his presence filled the space. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the whirlwind of emotions Emily felt inside. He was a man accustomed to power and influence, and now, she would face him, knowing the weight of her actions. As she sat across from him, Emily's heart pounded in her chest. But she knew she had no choice but to apologize and face the reality of what had happened. "Mr. Musk," Emily began, her voice trembling slightly but steady enough, "I want to apologize for what happened on the flight. I let the pressure from other passengers influence my decision, and I made a mistake. I was just trying to maintain a peaceful and comfortable environment for everyone, but I see now that I overstepped." Elon listened quietly, his eyes fixed on her. There was no sign of anger, only a piercing calmness. When he finally spoke, his words were deliberate. "I appreciate your apology, but the reality is that your actions had consequences that go beyond this incident. This isn't just about a hat. This is about your professionalism, your ability to handle difficult situations without letting emotions dictate your actions." Emily nodded, understanding that Elon was testing her, seeing if she was truly capable of taking responsibility for her mistake. "I understand, sir," she said quietly. "And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove that I can learn from this mistake and become a better employee." Elon studied her for a moment before responding. "I'm giving you two options," he said, his voice calm but serious. "You can resign immediately, and we won't disclose the reason publicly. Or you can undergo an intensive training program on professionalism, ethics, and customer service. This will be monitored closely. But understand this, if you fail again, there won't be a third chance. Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her. The second chance was what she had hoped for, but she knew it would be far from easy. I choose the second option, Mr. Musk. I want to make things right. I won't let you down. Elon nodded, his expression softening just slightly. Good. I'm watching, and I expect you to learn from this. As Emily left the conference room, she felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. It wasn't over yet, but she had been given a chance to redeem herself, and she knew she had to make the most of it. The lessons she would learn in the coming months would shape her future, and she was determined not to repeat her mistakes. The weeks that followed Emily Carter's meeting with Elon Musk were a whirlwind of personal growth and intense reflection. The chance Musk had given her to redeem herself was a rare opportunity, one that she couldn't afford to squander. After her apology and commitment to change, she was enrolled in an intensive training program that focused on professionalism, customer service, and emotional control. The training, which was designed specifically for employees who had caused significant incidents, was grueling. It lasted for a full month, with a rigorous schedule that ran from early mornings to late afternoons. Each day felt like a battle, mentally, emotionally, and professionally, but Emily knew she had to push through if she was going to rebuild her reputation and prove to herself that she could handle high-pressure situations without letting her emotions get the best of her. The training covered everything from conflict resolution and active listening to managing stress and dealing with difficult passengers. The exercises were designed to be both mentally and physically challenging. Emily found herself facing scenarios that simulated real-life situations, where she was forced to make quick decisions under pressure. In one particular exercise, she had to deal with a mock passenger who was wearing a controversial symbol, much like Elon Musk's MAGA hat. The goal was to manage the passenger's behavior while keeping the rest of the cabin calm and ensuring the comfort of other passengers. Emily was observed by several senior flight attendants and trainers who provided feedback after each session. At first, she struggled to keep her emotions in check, but as the days went by, she began to make progress. She learned to separate her personal feelings from her work and how to handle conflict with patience and professionalism. One of the most important lessons Emily learned was the concept of unbiased empathy. The training emphasized that, as a flight attendant, it was her responsibility to treat all passengers with respect, regardless of their background or beliefs. She had to listen without judgment and find ways to resolve conflicts that would benefit everyone involved. It wasn't about agreeing with the passenger, but about creating a safe, comfortable environment for everyone on board. Emily quickly realized that her initial reaction to Elon's MAGA hat had been fueled by personal bias and the pressure of other passengers' opinions, and that was something she had to overcome if she wanted to continue in her career. By the time the month-long training came to an end, Emily felt transformed. She had faced her fears, acknowledged her mistakes, and learned how to manage difficult situations with poise and respect. The final week of training was focused on practical tests, where Emily had to put everything she had learned into practice. One of the exercises required her to manage a mock flight filled with challenging passengers, including one wearing a controversial political symbol. This time, Emily was calm and collected. She approached the situation with empathy, listening to the passengers' concerns, and ensuring that all other passengers felt comfortable. She didn't let her emotions take over, and instead, she remained focused on resolving the issue in a way that was respectful to everyone involved. When the exercise concluded, her trainer nodded in approval. "You've made significant improvements, Emily," the instructor said. "You've learned to control your emotions and handle situations with empathy. The key now is to maintain this attitude consistently in your work." Emily felt a sense of pride, but she also knew that the journey wasn't over. This training was just the beginning, and the real test would come when she returned to her job. A few weeks later, Emily was assigned to a domestic flight as the lead flight attendant. It was her first flight since the incident with Elon Musk, and she knew all eyes would be on her. She couldn't afford to make any mistakes. As the passengers boarded, Emily focused on her duties, ensuring that everyone had everything they needed and maintaining a calm, professional demeanor. Midway through the flight, a passenger wearing a T-shirt with the slogan, "No Tolerance for Diversity," entered first class, drawing attention from several passengers. The atmosphere in the cabin grew tense as whispers spread, but this time, Emily didn't panic. She approached the passenger calmly, asking if she could assist with anything. The man, whose demeanor was stern and unapproachable, responded that he didn't need anything, but that he simply wanted to enjoy the flight. Emily remained calm, smiling politely. "Of course, sir. If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to ask." She then turned to reassure the other passengers, addressing the rising tension in the cabin with a quiet but firm presence. The situation diffused quickly, and the cabin returned to normal. Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had handled the situation with respect and professionalism, just as she had been trained to do. Her colleague, a young flight attendant, approached her after the flight and said, "You handled that so well. If it were me, I don't think I could have stayed so calm." Emily smiled, feeling the weight of the training she had undergone in the past month. "Staying calm and respectful can resolve far more issues than we realize," she said. Several weeks later, Emily found herself facing another significant test. Elon Musk was flying first class again, and as he boarded the plane, Emily knew that this would be her chance to prove that she had truly changed. This time, Elon wasn't wearing the controversial MAGA hat, and Emily greeted him with a professional smile, guiding him to his seat and ensuring that his needs were met throughout the flight. When the flight was halfway through, Elon called her over. "You've done a great job," he said, his voice calm but warm. "I can see that you've really changed." Emily's heart lifted as she responded, "I've learned a lot from my mistakes, Mr. Musk. I know that professionalism and respect are things I can never afford to lose." Elon nodded, offering her a small but genuine smile. "Good. I'm glad I gave you a second chance." As Emily watched Elon exit first class at the end of the flight, she felt a profound sense of relief and pride. She had done it, she had redeemed herself. It wasn't just about proving her worth to Elon or to her colleagues, it was about proving to herself that she could learn from her mistakes and handle any challenge with professionalism and grace. The journey wasn't over, but for the first time since the incident, Emily felt confident in her ability to face whatever came next. After weeks of training, self-reflection, and the opportunity to prove herself, Emily Carter was finally assigned as the lead flight attendant on another high-profile domestic flight. This was her first flight since the incident with Elon Musk, and she knew this would be the true test of how much she had changed. The pressure was on her, but Emily was determined to show that she had learned from her mistakes and could handle any situation with professionalism and grace. The flight was from New York to Miami, a busy route with a mix of business travelers and vacationers. First class was filled with passengers, many of whom were high-profile individuals who expected top-tier service. As the passengers began boarding, Emily focused on her duties, ensuring that everything ran smoothly. She greeted each passenger with a warm smile and efficiently assisted with seating, making sure they had everything they needed for a comfortable flight. Throughout the boarding process, she maintained her composure, even though she could feel the weight of the incident with Elon Musk still looming over her. Once the flight was in the air, Emily remained focused on the cabin, constantly moving through the aisles, checking on passengers, and addressing any concerns that came up. The plane had reached cruising altitude, and things were going smoothly when a passenger in first class began to cause a disturbance. The man, who appeared to be in his late 40s, was talking loudly on his phone, disregarding the airline's policy of keeping conversations quiet during the flight. Emily approached him, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment where she would have to put everything she had learned into practice. "Excuse me, sir," Emily said, her voice calm but firm. "I kindly ask that you lower your voice as we need to maintain a peaceful environment for all passengers in first class." The man, clearly irritated, gave her an exasperated look. "What's the big deal? I'm just talking on the phone. I've paid for this seat, and I should be able to do what I want." Emily took a deep breath. She knew she had to keep her cool. Instead of reacting with frustration, as she might have in the past, she calmly responded, "I understand that you're trying to have a private conversation, sir, but I must ask you to please lower your voice so that all passengers can enjoy their flight. If you need to talk more comfortably, I can assist you in moving to the back of the plane." The man grumbled but finally complied, lowering his voice and finishing his conversation more quietly. Emily felt a surge of relief. She had handled the situation with the level of calm professionalism that she had been trained for, and it felt like a significant victory. The rest of the flight continued without incident, and Emily was able to provide top-notch service to all passengers. She checked in on each of them, refilled drinks, and ensured that everyone was comfortable and satisfied. When the flight landed in Miami, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had faced a challenge, remained composed, and handled the situation in a way that reflected her growth. As she led the passengers off the plane, a couple in first class approached her and thanked her for her excellent service, acknowledging how professional and courteous she had been. The compliment meant the world to Emily, especially after everything she had gone through. The next day, Emily received a message from her supervisor, who praised her for her handling of the situation and the overall professionalism she had shown on the flight. She was told that her performance had been exemplary and that her commitment to improvement had not gone unnoticed. It was a small victory, but for Emily, it was a powerful confirmation that she had made the right decision to continue working hard to rebuild her reputation. In the weeks that followed, Emily's confidence grew. She was given more leadership roles on subsequent flights, and each time, she was able to apply what she had learned during her training. She knew that she still had much to learn, but the progress she had made was undeniable. The incident with Elon Musk had been a turning point in her career, a painful, difficult lesson that had ultimately propelled her toward becoming a more effective, empathetic, and professional flight attendant. Though she had faced criticism and doubt, Emily had proven to herself and others that she was capable of growth. Her journey was far from over, but she now had the tools and mindset needed to navigate the challenges that lay ahead. The story of Emily Carter and her journey of redemption provides a powerful lesson about the importance of taking responsibility for our actions and learning from our mistakes, especially in a world where social media and public opinion can magnify even the smallest misstep. In today's fast-paced, high-pressure society, it's easy to react impulsively and let emotions dictate our decisions, but Emily's story shows that true growth comes from reflecting on our mistakes, owning them, and actively working to improve ourselves. One key takeaway is the importance of empathy and professionalism in the workplace. In any customer-facing role, especially in industries like aviation, where service and conflict management are integral to the job, it's crucial to separate personal emotions from professional responsibilities. Emily learned to approach every situation with patience, respect, and an open mind, no matter how challenging the passenger might be. In a culture where divisive issues are often polarized, learning to handle disagreements with grace is essential. Another important lesson from this story is the value of second chances. Emily was given the opportunity to prove herself, and she did not squander it. Instead of walking away or giving up, she embraced the chance to learn through a difficult training process and came out stronger. This speaks to the importance of resilience and the willingness to face discomfort in order to grow. In today's world, where career setbacks and public mistakes can feel catastrophic, the story reminds us that with humility, determination, and a willingness to change, we can overcome challenges and continue forward. Emily's redemption highlights the fact that no mistake is permanent if we're committed to learning from it and making things right.